This video is brought to you by Sporlan. Quality, integrity, and tradition. So I want to start this video out really quick with explaining what I'm working on. I'm working on a beer line chiller, or I call them a Glycol unit, okay? So essentially, you have beer kegs inside the beer walk-in, maintained at 35 degrees, okay? And you have beer taps somewhere else inside the restaurant, all right? This particular restaurant, the beer taps come out, go underground, and run about 75 feet over, then come up into the bar area where they serve the beer. The problem is if we didn't have a beer line chiller, then potentially that 35-degree beer as it goes underground might be running through a chase that's, 68, 70 degrees, okay? And that could bring the temperature of your beer up and cause all kinds of problems, foaming, nasty beer, different things, okay? So we have a Glycol or a beer line chiller that cools glycol, okay, down below freezing. We use glycol that way we can get the liquid below freezing. We typically have it about 28 degrees, but different situations may change the temp a little bit, all right? And then it's circulated in its own lines, but it's wrapped around the beer lines. They usually put quite a few beer lines and then wrap a glycol line or two around them, and it just helps to maintain the temperature, okay?
Mini split in the glycol room. I think I died and went to heaven. Wow, that is awesome. All right, we have a service call today on a Glycol unit that was not working right. Obviously it's at 65 degrees. Compressor's cold, it's not running. We're gonna get a meter out and check to see. We're gonna start with the pressure controls, or actually we'll start with the temp control and then go to the pressure controls and go from there. Looking for any obvious signs of a leak, and I don't see any, so we'll dive into it and see what we can find. Let's just go ahead and test these pressure controls. Nothing. Let's test to see if we've got voltage. 120 in, 120 out. So none of the pressure controls are open. That's a good sign. So I'm gonna have to open up the temperature controller housing. So first off, I'm gonna see what this guy's set for. Okay, so it's set for 28 degrees and it's 65 degrees, so obviously something's wrong. So we're going to try to pull this cover off and hope we don't short out in our face. Actually, I'll pull this one off. If I see anything, nothing looks scary in there. Doesn't look like it's blown apart or anything. Everything looks good. Okay, we need to go ahead and pull the temp control and test that now. I just wanted to do that before I pulled the temp control out in case there was shorted out wires and stuff, and I want to do this live if possible so I can catch the problem. Let's see what we got in here. Where's my compressor at? My compressor is on 4 and 5, I think. Okay, so that's 4 to 5. We have an open circuit on the temperature controller. This is the temperature controller out, so we have an open circuit on the temp control, so we got a bad temperature controller. Let's try to power it down. And turn it back on. So we're set for the 20-something degrees, and it's 60-something degrees in the box, and it's not calling for cooling. So the temp control's messed up. Okay, so I don't have a Glycol controller, so I'm going to put a temporary temperature controller in this guy. Just a universal A19 temporarily, and we'll come back tomorrow or the next day and put in a Glycol and do it right. Clean it up. So we are going to have to do some modifying, but essentially it's just going to be set for 28 degrees, and brought some wire with me and we'll get it dialed in. So it's just a temporary solution. Again, this will get me through the night, get their Glycol unit running. I'm going to go and power it up right now. Let's hope nothing blows up. If I did it right, then it should work. Something's not right. It should have came on. Oh, gotta turn the power switch on. There we go. Now we're running, and let's test it. And it does. Temporarily, we're gonna set it for about 28 degrees. Most Glycol units are set for about 28. But don't use that number for everything. Each manufacturer can be different, and it all depends on what they're doing. Especially if you have Cobra head taps. I am not a Glycol specialist, okay, but if you have Cobra head taps, you don't want to mess with anything. Those things are so finicky. And if you don't know what the Cobra head taps look like, the beer tap looks like a Cobra head, and it freezes up with ice around it. It looks pretty badass, but Cobra head taps can be pretty finicky, so you want to make sure you get them set up right. And I don't mess with those. Call the beer company out, let them do it. It's there, baby. So this guy is just a 230 volt control. So we need to get a 230 volt control from the supply house, which we should be able to get. That's pretty much going to wrap it up, guys. This is kind of like a little hack job to get them through the night. It works, you know, it's sufficient for now. And running a clear sight glass, so that's good. It's kind of sketched down in there. Glycol level looks a little low too, but yeah, it's going. So that'll just be on there for the night. And then that temperature controller will be thrown away, by the way. I'm not going to try to reuse that. That thing's out of the picture. So both the pumps are running. This one's really hot. This one has been powered off. So yeah, that's it. This little Glycol unit. This thing's missing all the covers and stuff, so that's what all this is. People probably took them off because it was overheating or something. But it's up in this protected room up here, so. And again, love my mini split. That's like liquid gold, man. When do you ever see a mini split in a Glycol room? That is flipping awesome. Okay, we are back today. I've got a new control. I ended up ordering the factory control from the manufacturer. And the reason why, so in a situation like this, I try to go back with OEM, but there's times that I'll use, like, because this is just a standard, you know, what is that, like a 3.5 inch mount. So you could have used a Glycol controller. But the way that they mount their sensor in this reservoir right here, it goes into the stream, and I needed that sensor from them, so I just wanted to go back in with the factory one. So to refresh, remember I had put this temperature controller on here temporarily, and obviously you can see it's working because my condenser unit just shut off, and it's maintaining what is that, about 28, 30 degrees, which is typical on these units. So I am going to have to fix some wiring because remember we had some burnt wires, so we'll get that. And the other thing that's driving me nuts, and I planned on this, I'm going to get all this trash. Look at, there's old pumps, bottles of glycol, the top to an old glycol unit. I mean, just so much junk in here. Back here, there's fans and, you know, a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be here. So, okay, so power's coming out of the temperature controller on this one. According to this schematic right here, here's the little schematic they give you. All right, this is the new one. So power, 115 volt, hot leg is coming in on 3. The neutral or common terminal is coming in on 4. This is, and then it automatically has a jumper inside and brings power out of 2. So coming out of 2, this is why I don't like this. Look at that, that wire came out. I got to make sure we get those tightened in good. But anyway, so power comes out of 2, it's going to run into the pressure control. We got a high and a low. So it's going to run into the high, come out of the low, and then go back and then go to the compressor. So that's how we're going to wire it right now. I just got to get it all figured out. Really like these Klein. This one's it's like a 4-in-1 Klein precision screwdriver. So it has the double bits. And then you can do the other side too. It's really nice, and it has a swivel thing on the top. There's the Klein 32581. This thing's really nice. You can do different sizes, and then I also have the other one. It's like a little set for really small stuff. These I'll link these down in the show notes of the video, but I really like these. They're made by Klein. Careful not to over tighten these guys because you can break them off on the terminals. Make sure that you get a nice good connection. Okay, now I got to figure out how to, we got it electrically hooked up. I got to figure out how to run this sensor now. And this is going to be kind of tricky because the sensor goes into this cavity, but then it's out in here. So we got to get into the cavity, and there's a cover plate that comes off. So I got to get in there and hopefully take it off and get into that side. All right, put the cover back on. Put the cover back on this one. So I need to kind of adjust it a little bit, but so we got covers now. We got filter medias. They're both down to temp. I don't see a reason to put service gauges on this one because it's such a small charge and it came down to temp in a reasonable amount of time, and it has a sight glass, and the sight glass is clear, so I think we're good. So yeah, everything's looking good. I cleaned up as best as I could. It doesn't have to be perfect, but cleaned up all the pumps and stuff that people have left up here. Box fan, I'm going to leave that up here because that's always good in case the condenser fan motor fails. That'll get you through a weekend. Yeah, if you ever see an empty bottle up here, you want to leave those up here because that's for glycol when you have to fill the glycol. I always leave an empty bottle up here, but yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. We're good. We're going to call this one done.
Okay, to recap, glycol unit that had a bad temperature controller. The contacts were failed open. I did have to do a little work to temporarily get the unit going because I didn't have the factory control, so I used that temporary A19 controller. Got it up and running until I can order the factory one. Sometimes, like I mentioned in the video, I thought about using a Dixel controller instead of the one that was in there. But because of the sensor location, I wanted to get that factory sensor back in there. So that's why I went ahead and ordered the proper control from Banner. Okay, Banner was the manufacturer of the unit. Came back out, put the control in, everything was operating properly. I cleaned up that room, got rid of all the trash that I could, all the other people's parts and stuff that they had left up there, because I'm not a fan of leaving trash in places like that. Even though the customer's never going to go up there, I still go up there, and I can't handle tripping over everything. So cleaned everything up. I'm still blown away that there's a mini split in that room. That is so awesome. That's like a unicorn. It's very rare that you ever see a mini split in a glycol room. But nonetheless, customer was happy. Glycol unit's been working good for a couple weeks now. Life is good. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos, and pay attention to some of the other channels I got popping up right now. And I will see you guys on the next one, okay?